It was late, much later than I usually stay up, the kind of night when the world outside seems quiet, but inside, something feels off like the calm before a storm. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone when it buzzed suddenly. A message? No, a call. From my sister. Her name flashed on the screen, but I hesitated before answering. Something about that moment felt heavy. When I finally picked up, her voice was barely more than a whisper. "Don't trust him," she said urgently. Then silence. "Who? What are you talking about?" I asked, confused and a little alarmed. But the line went dead. I sat back, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. My sister had never been the type to cry wolf. If she was warning me like that, it had to mean something serious. But what? The man she was talking about, my boyfriend, or maybe soon-to-be fiancé, had seemed perfect for months. Charming, caring, the kind of person you tell your friends about with a smile. We'd talked about a future together, about plans and dreams. Could it all be a lie? I tried calling her back, but there was no answer. Hours later, still unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, I decided to text her. "Please tell me what's going on." No reply. The night passed in restless sleep, haunted by my sister's words echoing in my mind. Don't trust him. Why? What had she seen? What was she afraid of? By morning, my world felt fragile, like a glass ready to shatter. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore that warning. That day, every glance, every word from him felt different. I started noticing little things I hadn't before. A hesitation when I asked certain questions, a phone screen quickly hidden, an uneasy silence when I mentioned my sister. Something was off. I just didn't know what yet. And so began the journey, one that would force me to question everything I believed and lead me down a path I never expected. Because sometimes a whispered warning is the only thing standing between safety and disaster. The morning light poured through the window, but it did little to ease the unease that had settled in my chest. My sister's warning kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. Don't trust him. Who was he really? And why had she felt such urgency to warn me? I tried to push the thoughts away during the day, telling myself I was overthinking. After all, he had never given me a reason to doubt him before. But as the hours passed, I started noticing things I had missed. Little cracks in the perfect image I'd built around him. At breakfast, I asked a casual question about his plans for the weekend. His answer was vague, almost evasive. He glanced away quickly when I pressed for details. That small flicker of discomfort in his eyes sent a chill down my spine. Later, while we were together, my phone buzzed with a message from my sister. I glanced at it discreetly, just a few words. Watch carefully. But I didn't know what to watch for. Throughout the day, I started paying closer attention. The way he handled his phone suddenly seemed secretive, quickly locking the screen whenever I glanced over. He was often distracted, checking messages that he wouldn't show me. At one point, I caught him nervously brushing his fingers through his hair and avoiding eye contact when I mentioned my sister's name. It was as if something about her made him uncomfortable. I wanted to confront him, to ask point blank what was going on. But a small voice inside me whispered caution. What if I was wrong? What if my sister's warning was a misunderstanding? But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and it was growing fast. Every lie, every half-truth, every evasive glance seemed to build an invisible wall between us. That night, I lay awake wondering who he really was. Was the man I loved hiding something dangerous? And if so, how deep did the deception go? The perfect life I had imagined suddenly felt fragile and uncertain. The warning wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a storm gathering on the horizon. I knew that if I wanted answers, I couldn't ignore the doubts any longer. I had to dig deeper, because sometimes the hardest truth is the one we don't want to see. The doubts swirling in my mind wouldn't let me rest. I realized that I couldn't rely on feelings alone anymore. I needed facts, proof, something solid. My sister's warning wasn't just a casual comment. It was a lifeline thrown in the dark. I had to grab it. That evening, I met my sister in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes and ears. Her face was pale, her eyes serious. She slid a small envelope across the table and whispered, "Everything you need to know is in here. But be careful. This goes deeper than you think." Inside the envelope were photos, messages, and notes, fragments of a hidden story. There were pictures of him meeting someone late at night, secret text conversations that didn't add up, and mentions of names I didn't recognize. My heart sank. This wasn't just about small lies or hidden secrets. This was something dangerous. I felt a mix of anger and fear. How could I have missed all this? How long had he been living a double life right under my nose? Back at home, I started piecing everything together. I created a folder on my laptop, copying every message, every photo, every suspicious detail. I knew I couldn't share this with anyone else yet, not without knowing the full truth. My sister promised to keep digging. She had sources I didn't, people who could help uncover the rest. Meanwhile, I vowed to stay alert, to watch him closely, and to never let my guard down. Every interaction with him became a test. I asked casual questions, watched his reactions, and tried to find inconsistencies. Sometimes I caught fleeting moments of hesitation or nervousness that confirmed my fears. The deeper I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. I felt trapped between love and fear, between hope and harsh reality. The man I trusted might be the very person I needed to fear the most. And so, the investigation began, not just into his actions, but into the truth behind the mask he wore every day. Because in stories like this, the truth is the only weapon. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. I sifted through every piece of evidence my sister had given me, trying to make sense of the puzzle. Then, late one night, I stumbled upon something that stopped me cold. A hidden folder on his laptop, cleverly disguised but accessible if you knew where to look. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were emails, photos, and documents that shattered everything I thought I knew. He wasn't just hiding small lies or secrets. There was a whole other life, full of deception and betrayal. One email stood out. It was from an unknown address, talking about the plan and making sure she never finds out. My breath caught. Was I the she they were talking about? The more I read, the darker the story became. There were mentions of people I didn't know, places I'd never heard of, and actions that made my skin crawl. Photos showed him meeting strangers in shadowy places, exchanging envelopes, and whispering urgently. I realized I was caught in something far more dangerous than a broken relationship. This was a web of lies, and I was right in the center. Fear surged through me, but so did determination. I couldn't turn back now. I had to know the full truth. no matter how painful. The next morning, I confronted him with what I'd found. His face changed, a flicker of panic flashing in his eyes, before he masked it with anger. He denied everything, accusing me of invading his privacy and being paranoid. But I knew better. I saw the cracks in his defense, the hesitation when he avoided my gaze. The man I loved was no longer who I thought he was. That day, everything changed. Trust was gone, replaced by suspicion and fear. I realized that the warning my sister had given me was just the beginning. The real fight was just about to start. And as the truth spilled out, I braced myself for the consequences. Because some secrets don't stay buried forever. The moment I confronted him, the atmosphere in the room shifted. His calm facade cracked, revealing a flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Fear, maybe even guilt. I held the printed emails and photos in my trembling hands, voice steady but cold. "Why are you lying to me? Who are you really working with? What is this plan you're talking about?" He looked away, then back at me, with eyes that were hard to read. "You don't understand. You're jumping to conclusions." But I wasn't about to back down. I needed answers. I found everything. The secret meetings, the messages. "How long have you been hiding this from me?" He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "It's complicated. You have no idea what I'm involved in. If I told you the truth, it would put you in danger." His words sounded like excuses, but the fear in his eyes was real. I wanted to believe him, but the trust was already broken. How could I believe anything after all the lies? I pressed harder. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep me in the dark?" He avoided my gaze again, a cold silence hanging between us. "I was protecting you. That's all you need to know." But it wasn't enough. The silence screamed louder than his words. I could feel the distance growing, the invisible wall between us thickening with every passing second. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything. The lies, the secrets, the betrayal. How could someone so close keep such dangerous truths hidden? My sister's warning echoed in my mind louder than ever. Don't trust him. I wished I had listened sooner. The man I thought I knew was gone. In his place was someone I barely recognized, a stranger with secrets that threatened to destroy everything. And now I had to decide what to do next. Because in the darkest moments, the truth can either set you free or break you completely. The days that followed felt like I was living in a fog. Every moment with him was tinged with suspicion, every word a potential lie. The man I once trusted with my heart now felt like a stranger hiding behind a mask. He tried to act normal, but the distance between us was undeniable. Conversations became short and cold, smiles forced and fleeting. The warmth that once filled our relationship was replaced by silence and tension. I found myself questioning everything. Had our entire relationship been built on lies? Was any moment we shared real, or just another carefully crafted deception? The hardest part was feeling so alone. I wanted to reach out to friends or family, but I was ashamed that I hadn't seen the signs sooner, ashamed that I might have trusted someone so deeply and been so wrong. My sister was the only person I could confide in, and even she urged caution. "You have to protect yourself," she said. "This isn't just about betrayal. It's about your safety." One evening, I caught him looking at me with something I hadn't seen before. Regret. For a fleeting second, I thought maybe there was still a chance to repair what was broken. But when I reached for his hand, he pulled away. "It's too late," he said quietly. That simple phrase hit me harder than any argument. Too late for forgiveness. Too late for trust. Too late for us. I realized then that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes trust is shattered beyond repair, and you have to find the strength to walk away. The warning my sister gave me was no longer just a whisper. It was a reality I had to face head on. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. I couldn't stay in a world built on lies. And so, I began to prepare, to protect myself, to find my own truth, and to reclaim my life. Because when trust is broken, the hardest journey is learning how to heal. In the darkest moments, when everything seemed to be falling apart, my sister became my rock. She was the one constant I could hold on to, the voice of reason amid the chaos. After months of confusion and heartbreak, I realized I couldn't face this alone. So I reached out to her, hoping for more than just a warning. I needed guidance, strength, and someone to stand by me. She welcomed me without hesitation. We spent hours talking, poring over every detail, every message, every strange behavior I'd noticed. Her calm presence helped me see things more clearly. "I'm here for you," she said firmly. "Whatever happens, you're not alone." Her support was more than words. She helped me organize the evidence, connect the dots, and prepare for what might come next. Together, we made plans, cautious steps to protect me, to expose the truth safely. One night, as we sat late in the kitchen, she told me about people she knew who had faced similar betrayals. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "This isn't your fault, but you have to be smart and careful." Her encouragement gave me courage. I began to feel a flicker of hope in the midst of the darkness. With her by my side, I was ready to confront the lies and the danger ahead. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a fighter. The road ahead was uncertain, and the risks were real. But knowing my sister had my back made all the difference. Because sometimes, the strongest kind of love comes not from those who betray us, but from those who stand with us through the storm. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, the danger crept closer. The man I once loved had turned into a shadow looming over my life, and his threats became impossible to ignore. It started with cold, anonymous messages, warnings, veiled as advice, telling me to stop asking questions, to stay silent. At first, I tried to brush them off, convincing myself it was just my imagination running wild. But then the threats grew more direct. One evening, I found a note slipped under my door. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." My heart pounded as fear sank deep into my bones. I told my sister, and together, we decided it was time to take action. We contacted a trusted lawyer and began documenting everything, the messages, the notes, even strange people lurking nearby. Every step I took felt heavier. I was no longer just fighting a broken relationship. I was fighting for my safety. At home, I was jumpy. Every sound made me flinch. My phone was always within reach, ready to call for help. Trusting anyone felt impossible. He tried to manipulate me once more, pretending everything was a misunderstanding, that he cared, that I was overreacting. But the cold truth was undeniable. His words were poison, hiding behind a mask of concern. I realized I had to be stronger than my fear. I couldn't let him control me anymore. With my sister's unwavering support and a growing circle of trusted allies, I prepared for the battle ahead. Because sometimes surviving betrayal means facing the darkness head-on, no matter the cost. The pressure was unbearable, like being trapped between two worlds, one filled with painful truths, the other with the tempting comfort of denial. Every day, I faced the harsh reality that I could no longer live in the shadow of lies and danger. I thought about all the moments we shared, all the promises made. But promises mean nothing when trust is shattered and your safety is at risk. I had to decide, continue to stay and fight in a battle that was consuming me, or walk away to protect my heart and my life. It wasn't an easy choice. Fear whispered that leaving meant weakness, that I was giving up on love. But a louder voice inside me knew better. Sometimes survival means knowing when to let go. I gathered my courage, and with my sister by my side, I made a plan. It was not just about leaving him, it was about reclaiming my power, my dignity, and my peace. The decision felt like breaking free from invisible chains. Every step away was painful, but with each step, I felt lighter. Walking away wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, a chance to heal, to rebuild, and to find strength I didn't know I had. I realized that choosing myself was the bravest thing I could do. Because sometimes the hardest battle is fighting for your own freedom. Leaving him was the hardest thing I ever did. The pain of saying goodbye to someone I once loved cut deep, but with every step away, I felt a growing sense of freedom. The chains of betrayal and fear were finally breaking. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty, but also with hope. I leaned heavily on my sister and a small circle of trusted friends. Their support was a lifeline, helping me rebuild piece by piece. I started to focus on myself rediscovering passions I had set aside and finding new ones. For the first time in a long time, I felt the spark of joy and possibility flicker back to life. Therapy helped me face the trauma and the scars left behind. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was necessary. I learned that healing isn't linear. Some days were harder than others, but every step forward was progress. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself again, to listen to that inner voice that had warned me from the start. I realized that my strength wasn't just surviving the betrayal, it was choosing to rise above it. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live a life free from fear and lies. This new beginning is just the start of a story I'm writing for myself, a story of resilience, courage, and hope. Because sometimes the end of one chapter is the beautiful beginning of another.